Hello and welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, bringing you interesting and amazing conversations from the front lines of innovation. We live in a time of disruption, ladies and gentlemen, where nothing's going back to normal. Everything's up for review, and we're all at cause, creating what gets to be normal next. I am so looking forward to learning more about you. So hit me with the highlights. What is it that you love about what you do for work?
Well, what I love is, I specialize in the area of follow-up. And people work well, in general, they're not good at it for a variety of reasons. And it pains me how hard people work, how stressed they are, how chaotic everything is for them. And if they would just follow up, they would get so much more business. They wouldn't be wasting time, effort, and energy and money and all that good stuff on lead generation and then not seeing the fruit of all that labor in closed business simply because they're not following up. So when I say simply, I mean it's clear. I'm not saying it's easy for everybody because it is a struggle for most.
Right.
So that's what drives me, to do this.
And so the fortune is in the follow-up, as they say. So when you are supporting people to make sure that that fortune is harvested, who are your favorite people to work with to be able to produce those results?
Well, they say you shouldn't say anyone and everyone, all, but those that have business development responsibilities, which because follow-up is a fundamental in the sales process, I work with a wide array of industries because it's relative to
Mm,
everybody that's in sales. However, I'd say the industry I work with more than any other industry is realtors.
hmm.
Um, yeah, but having said that, I work with so many different industries, so many. And because it's a fundamental, that's why I can teach it to one on one or one on many, because it's relative regardless of what they sell.
Right on. So pardon me for like the rapid fire questions. I'm like so interested in learning like kind of, how you go about creating this type of result and like where did you see this for yourself? Like how did you come to this as a discipline to pay forward in your life?
So I had a 25-year corporate career. And I was a business banker, and I spent the lion's share of my career managing SBA departments, Small Business Administration, and their government loans, which means they're highly regulated and all these rules and regulations. And so to
Hmm.
manage a successful department, I had to develop a brain for systems. And so after managing SBA for about 15 years, I was asked if I would consider the position of branch manager. And I was ready for a change. So I accepted it, which put me into sales. And I studied the sales process, realized how critical follow up is. And I'm like, well, how do you be good at it and stay on top of it? And I fell back on what I do well, which is create systems. So the bank I was working for, I was a senior vice president, and the bank I was working for was acquired, and we were not the lead bank. And you know how that story ends. And so I knew banking had run its course in my life, but because it had been 25 years and I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what that was. And a really good friend of mine said, you should become a speaker and coach and teach people how you follow up. And I knew nothing. I knew a lot about follow up, but I knew nothing about the coaching and speaking business. But I thought, what the heck? So I went out on a wing and a prayer and started speaking. And I learned very quickly that in general, people struggle in this area. And that was 15 years ago. And so, here I sit still doing what I do. And that's how I got here.
So tell me about some of your most favorite transformations from no fortune in the follow-up to, cooking with gas or really just knocking it out of the park. Can you talk to like a transformation story of someone you served?
Yes, I have I have several, but I have one client that was and I have his permission to say this. He was just a mess. I don't know any. I don't know. I mean, a mess. And I'm telling you, what he is today is remarkable. He has just brought it in, systematized what he does. He's built a team. I mean, it's just remarkable. And then, I like one of my favorites is I have a client who was so good. He was, before we started working together, he was the number one salesperson for the company he worked for. There was a sales team of six. He did more volume than salesperson two and three combined. And this was before we started working together. So he knew what he was doing. But
Yeah.
I was actually a little nervous because I'm like, what am I going to do with you? You're so good. But there were some loose ends in what he was doing, and we tightened up, we systematized, and within 6 months, he tripled his sales from what he was already doing. So, those are the two opposite ends of the spectrum. The one who was just a mess and the other one who was on it, successful. And they both went to new levels. And then I worked with so many in between those two bookends.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So tripled business in how long?
6 months. I have a testimonial from
Wow.
him. Yeah, he tripled his business in 6 months. And he was actually I think he even says this in the testimony that he had to put a time out on pursuing new business because he was like, maybe I should just focus on getting referrals because it was just became too much. It was so much business, which is a good thing to have. A good problem, I should say, to have. But yeah, yeah, he tripled his sales in 6 months. And my client that was a mess, that it took time because things just were in such disarray. And so much of it is habit forming and getting systems in place, but he's done really well. So.
I really love that. So, like, if we could share with the audience some of your secret sauce, because as someone I know, love, and trust says, people pay for implementation because all the information is out there. So, share with us a little bit about what you find to be the most powerful pieces of the systems you help people implement.
Well, it's the fund. I start with the fundamentals, which it builds the foundation. And when somebody is struggling, I can bet the bank and win the bet that they don't have the three fundamentals in place. And those are, uh, you first is forces mindset. Okay, there's so many fears associated with following up. Fear of rejection, fear of being pushy, fear of not knowing what to say, fear of what the prospect is going to say, on and on. There's just fear of appearing desperate, on and on and on. Got to fix it up here, okay, before, so that you don't get tripped up. So that's fundamental one, mindset. Fundamental two is you got to use a CRM. If you're not using a CRM, you're slipping and sliding, and that's exhausting. You lose business, your stress level's high. And then the third fundamental, which sounds very elementary and common sense, but it's not very common, is follow up has to be a daily priority. It just has to be. And it's not. And follow up work is very easy not to do. It is so easy to continuously push it to the side because there's something more important, more urgent, and I'll do it later. And the problem is the work that keeps getting pushed aside is the work that's going to bring in more business. And it's a complete disconnect, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
complete.
If it is not on fire, it doesn't seem to be important in the mind of the bombardier. So
And
I think it's really important for people to understand that
it,
prioritization and creating systems to support what you say your priorities are. Because, like they say, your bank account reflects exactly what your priorities are, not what you say they are. So the fortune is in the follow up. Are you making follow up a priority? And are you following a systematized approach to be accountable to that follow through? I love that these are like the big core pieces that, they're not rocket science. It's not like there's, this unknown nebulous force out there that's going to tell you how to build consistent referral business or consistent lead gen, but I love what you're saying. It's like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
because usually the fears are unfounded. You have to just take that step and that leap in faith, number one. Number two, have a way to systematically categorize who it is you want to follow up with and why, and then doing the thing,
Yes.
making it a priority, scheduling it into your calendar. And so, like, I usually find for myself that the beginning of the week is super structured, really intentional. And by Friday, we're rolling downhill, we're putting out fires, and we're kind of just following the flow of what happens to happen if we're not careful and intentional. I have fallen prey to it. I know many folks that do. So, how do you suggest for people to combat? You said daily habits are really important. I'm a huge believer in daily habits. So, how do you help your folks implement this daily habit of follow up? Is it part of their morning routine, like setting up their work for the day? Is it part of their evening routine, tying up and making sure that the system is sound and ready to pick back up the next day? Because I talk a lot about habits. I talk about a lot about personal habits to kind of set the tone for the business habits, because I have gratitude and morning routines and like first thing in the day, and I have victory logs and personal habits for the end of the day. But what you're talking about is really helpful and useful to kind of bookend your quote unquote workday. And as entrepreneurs or people who are responsible for their own book of business, we can be our own worst enemy. So, how do you suggest people go about that? And then how can people reach you to learn more?
Yeah, they have to time block for it. Get it into the calendar like it was an appointment. Because, time blocking is such an effective productivity strategy. It tends to put the blinders on. And there's like a sense of urgency because you only have so much time. But it has to be scheduled and you have to make the time for it. That's the thing. You can't wait till you have time, till time miraculously shows up
Right.
to get your follow-up work done. That's the number one reason why people say they don't get it done because they don't have the time. And that's just not true. It's not a time issue. It's a prioritization issue. Getting it on the schedule.
And
Every,
being accountable to that schedule.
yes,
Because
yes.
I've known people, and I've been that people. Put it in the calendar, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a non-appointment time. I could do it, or I could not do it. So, I love what you're saying about making it a daily habit, because for me, making daily habits makes it very easy to not ignore the thing that's on the calendar. So, I am so grateful to have you here to have this discussion. Where can people find you? Because again, knowing is only half the battle. Having a partner and an accountability and an implementer by your side is worth its weight in gold. So, how can people find you and ask for a consultation or to be able to engage your services?
They can go to my website, followupsalesstrategies.com. It's a one-stop shop. They can book an appointment. They can learn more about what I do. And yeah, that's how they can get me.
That is super cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come and get to know me and come and share some of your wisdom. I think this information is really valuable. It's part of the program of, creating your own discipline to make sure you are focusing on the right things to move what you say you want forward, and then reviewing and understanding, is this still important? Is this still necessary? And at the end of the day, if you're responsible for your book of business, the fortune is in the follow up. So please reach out to Wanda and let's get an appointment on her calendar. Ladies and gentlemen, do yourself a favor. This type of accountability is absolutely wonderful. Stay tuned for the next amazing episode that comes right after this one. So good to have you here.